Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with Monday Special, where we're looking at HIV/AIDS among young people in Kenya today. Let me introduce you to my panelists tonight. On my far left, we have Eric Gitau. He's a researcher and also has a background in counseling. He's with UNICEF, so he's going to give us some information from there. Then we have Lillian Odach. She's 26 years old. She's an advocate. She's living with HIV/AIDS, and later on she'll be telling us a little bit more about what her organization is doing to raise awareness. Right next to me on my right, we have Rashid Mutaha, 18, also an advocate, also living with HIV/AIDS, and he too will be giving us his story and more about the campaign he's carrying out. And then we have Dr. Lillian Otiso, who is the Director of Programs at LVCT. Thank you all so much for being with me tonight. Just want to read a few tweets that have come to me just regarding what people think needs to be done to address the resurgence of HIV/AIDS among young people. At big_joke on Twitter says, the reason why there seems to be more cases that parents don't ask, they don't say anything to us. We wonder why. So it's a vicious circle. Someone else here is saying drug use and the movies we watch. And then Erica from Machakos says she's 20 years old and she can say peer pressure is one of the reasons why young people are engaging in sex so early. And then finally, we have Daniel Osiem, who says, sadly, young people don't learn from others. Their own lessons sometimes lead them to infection. Use the hashtag MondaySpecialKE to talk to us. That's on Twitter, or you can text us on 22422. And I think I'll start by asking you, Eric, just based on the research that you've carried out, is there really a rise in the number of young people in Kenya who are being infected with HIV/AIDS?
Well, the 29% of all new infections are amongst adolescents and youth in the country. Yeah. That's according to a recent research conducted nationally called the Kenya AIDS Indicator Survey. And a lot of the reasons why are amongst the ones you've mentioned, but also, of course, unprotected sex and early sexual debut. So 1 in every 5 young people between the ages of 15 and 24 has had sex by the time they're 15. 1 in every 5? Yes, and okay. Only 68% of those ones have actually reports using protection during their first intercourse. Okay. So it could be for a number of reasons that they're having this sexual debut. It could be forced, coerced, it could be out of choice, it could be to look for money, you know, for gifts, but the fact that it's also unprotected, it's also with multiple partners, really predisposes them to risk. So yes, indeed, HIV is indeed a burden amongst young people in the country today. Okay. Yeah. Before we hear from our young panelists, Rashid and Lillian, Dr. Otiso, maybe I can also bring this in just based on what Eric has said. How concerned should we be as a country regarding the rise in these trends? Has it reached a point where we really need to be worried and really need to start thinking about how to address it?
Definitely. For a fact, it's that the fact is that young people are the ones who acquire the infection the most at the moment. Most of the new infections are in young women especially. They are at risk due to various reasons. You've just mentioned if they have unprotected sex, they don't know where to get the right information from, they want to experiment different things. So you find that they start getting infected or start engaging in sex when they're adolescents. By the time they're 20 to 24, then they get infected, and then it continues, and then they infect their children, and it becomes a vicious cycle. A vicious cycle. Yeah. Okay. Maybe I can start with you, Lillian. Tell us a little bit about your own story.
Okay. I grew up in an Adventist family, and my parents were very strict. They did not talk about HIV mostly, but they used to tell me, don't get pregnant. So I was so cautious about being pregnant than getting HIV. So when I finished my Form 4, I found this young man, and we fell in love like all the other ladies were doing, and I can say that was peer pressure because all my friends had their boyfriends. Yeah. How old were you? I was 18. You were 18, okay. Yeah, immediately after Form 4. So with this man, like as young people we do, the first time you'll have sex, you'll protect yourself. The second time you'll protect yourself. The third time you'll believe that now I've trusted this guy, so the condom, you just throw it away. So that's what happened, and now we started having sex without any protections. And after like 1 year, we had a slight misunderstanding. So this guy, instead of like we could sort out our issues on a very
Like on an understanding or
yeah.
That basis.
So he said he just sent me a text and told me, Lillian, don't be proud of yourself. Go and test yourself first. Wow. The VCT.
He texted you?
Yeah, he
that?
texted me. So I was so confused. I did not know who to talk to, but I talked to a certain friend of mine whom we schooled with, and she took me to LVCT, just around here, Hurlingham, and I did the test, and it turned out positive. So I was so shocked. I didn't know of any issues of disclosure or stuff. So I was just telling everyone because of the shock. And with that, I was stigmatized. As a young woman, just finished high school, you just have your life ahead of you, and now this one has come, you don't know who to talk to. And life was just... Yeah. So what I did, I went and disclosed to my extended family, and so that is when now I faced the stigma of the highest order. More
with your family than with the rest of society.
Yeah.
What were they saying? What they were calling you all kinds of names, or what was their reaction?
Okay, they were like, I can say they were ignorant maybe. They did not know more about HIV, so they did not know what to tell me as now a young woman. So they just started spreading, some of my cousins started spreading the news all over the estate, and everyone was looking at me as if I'm a sinner, even in the church, because I'm an Adventist, and you know, Adventists are so cautious about some things.
Okay.
So
yeah. Okay.
So even it was in church, and everyone was looking at me as if I'm a sinner.
All right, so the stigma was really bad.
The stigma was really bad.
Okay, I want to come back to you in just a moment, and you know, you seem to have come from so far. The fact that you're here, you know, sharing your story as an advocate, I think that's very powerful. So I'd like to find out more about how you then decided to share your story and empower the young people.
Okay.
Rashid, I know the circumstances for you were different. It wasn't to do with unprotected sex. Could you tell me a little bit more about your story?
No, you know, emotions are mixed. I feel like crying or laughing, I'm not sure.
Okay. You can do any. It's fine. Yeah.
Well, my story is all about just a normal teenager, peer pressure, got into drugs, you know, and substance abuse at a young age.
How old?
Like, I think 12 or 13.
12 or 13?
Yeah.
How did you get led into that? Was it peer pressure? Was it...
Yeah. It was peer pressure and curiosity. It was just...
yeah. Was it in the estate or school?
No, it was in school.
Okay.
Like, you know, you go for school, like Friday classes, Saturday classes, they're like, oh, you know, I'm on a hangover, in quotes.
Yeah.
But you're really not. You've just been playing PlayStation the whole night.
Yeah.
But then you decide, I should actually see how somebody who is hangover is like.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it just started like that.
Okay.
One of my friends came, you guys have alcohol, let's go drink after school. And then, just like that.
All right. And then you graduated to drugs.
Graduation.
Yeah. You know what I mean. Okay, so at what point did
yes.
you start using, and what drugs were you using?
You know, it's like progressing.
Yes.
So that was like, I was in primary school.
Okay.
So you go to high school, and then people are like, you know what, that's something small. Let me show you something else. Let me teach you. Now you're a big boy. Let me teach you other things. So now you go to weed, you know. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm actually learning new things in high school.
Yeah.
Then slowly, after when you go for holidays, because I used to hang out a lot with people who are older than me.
Okay.
So during the holidays, they'd say, this is nothing. You need to try something else. Started doing a bit of cocaine.
Okay.
And it's like that. You're like, you want to go out and party. You want to be high the whole night. You need to try something else. Ecstasy. So it was a progression.
Yeah.
All through. And graduating, I guess.
Progression.
Progression.
Choice of words, yes. Yes, Rashid, I've noted. But then how did you then get infected?
That's a funny question.
No, I mean, first of all, the fact that you're laughing, you're making this discussion super awkward.
The story does not end in him getting infected.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what you told me.
Yeah.
That's what you told me. That's the brief I got. I'm sorry, I think that's what you said when we spoke on the phone earlier.
It's confusing me, like.
Oh, okay.
Did I really say that?
But you told me, Rashid, but okay. We'll sort out that beef later. Let's get into the discussion. All right, so... Okay, so for you, it's just really awareness about young people.
It's awareness because what happened is I had this you know, waking up every morning in a bed that you have no idea how you got there.
Yeah.
It doesn't only happen with chicks, it also happens with kids. You're young, you're here, you just, you get influenced and introduced to so much. And there was a time when there was a scare among me and my friends that probably you guys will have an STI or HIV. Because one of my friends actually did. And we did that whole thing of kupitisha dem to.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. So for me, mostly it's just awareness, talking about it. Because I have been there, I have had this risky behavior. I have been that kid who has, you know, had a lot of unprotected sex. And I know what it can lead to.
All right. Again, thanks for your honesty. I'll come back to you just to find out at what point you decided to sort of change your life around. So just before we go into the first break, and again, this is to Eric and Dr. Otiso, what do you think we can do? I think I just want to ask this bluntly, even before hearing from Rashid and Lillian, to begin to bring in that, to sensitize young people again, because it almost feels like young people today, trying to talk to them about unprotected sex, abstinence, it doesn't really seem to register. Is there something more that society can do or needs to do to really drive the message home?
Of course, not giving up on the sensitization is the first thing. In as much as at times passing on of information does not necessarily translate to behavior change, skill building is one of those things. You know, decision making, negotiation skills, those are some of the things, the very practical, critical life skills. Those are some of the things that young people can be empowered with, so that as they are in a situation that demands for them to make a decision whether to have sex or whether to have that sex with multiple partners or whether to have that sex in protection, they have what it takes. They have the ability to make an informed decision. So I don't think we should give up on the sensitization. Interestingly, only just a handful report to have accurate information, only 17%. Everyone knows about HIV. It stands for human, you know, but only a very small percentage actually have comprehensive knowledge, which translates to the ability to actually make decisions, informed decisions about. So we shouldn't give up. Health promotion messaging should be one of the things that we continue doing, in as much as now the global world is moving a lot more towards treatment and care. We shouldn't stop with prevention. We'll come back to more. Dr. Otiso, I'll give you a chance to respond to that after the break. Remember to share your thoughts and views. Use the hashtag MondaySpecialKE on Twitter or text us on 22422 with your name and location. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with Monday Special. Before we continue with our discussion, here's a story we're following for you. The Wiper Democratic Movement has tasked its disciplinary committee to crack the whip on rebels in the wake of the Maendeleo Chap-Chap movement, spearheaded by Machakos Governor Dr. Alfred Mutua. The party further endorsed former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka to fly its flag in the 2017 presidential race. On a day, Ford Kenya also picked Moses Wetangula as its flag bearer. The duo will scare it out with CORD co-principal Raila Odinga. Here's that story.
The Wiper Democratic Movement, led by former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, had retreated at Manzoni Lodge in Machakos County to deliberate on, among other issues, how to stem internal dissent perpetuated by a team led by Governor Dr. Alfred Mutua. The party firing a warning shot at Dr. Mutua and members of parliament elected on its ticket, who have embarked on a series of rallies under the Maendeleo Chap-Chap banner to question Musyoka's leadership and development credentials. Dr. Mutua and his team have been labeled Jubilee Coalition hirelings, meant to unsettle Musyoka and clip his political wings ahead of the 2017 polls.
The party has mandated its disciplinary committee to invoke its mandate as provided for in the party's constitution. Though this party, the movement, will remain focused and undeterred by Jubilee-inspired detractors.
The party has also endorsed the former Vice President to fly its flag in the 2017 race to State House. Some Wiper members of Parliament have piled pressure on Musyoka to go it alone in 2017 if he does not secure the CORD ticket.
Now, we think we have the best candidate, and it is our duty to persuade our partners to to convince them that Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka from Wiper, the Wiper leader, is the best candidate for 2017.
For the avoidance of doubt, yes, we are running. And I don't think I need to elaborate. The next thing to do is to come up with a platform. This country truly needs liberation.
Musyoka will have to square it out with ODM leader Raila Odinga and Ford Kenya boss Moses Wetangula in the race for CORD presidential ticket.
If that candidate is going to be Weta here, Raila and Kalonzo will stand behind me. If that candidate is going to be Kalonzo, the same will apply. If that candidate will be Raila, the same will apply.
The three core CORD affiliate parties have set up a team to establish mechanisms of picking the coalition's candidate in a free and transparent process.
Nobody should ever speculate on the possible disintegration of CORD. You know, it used to be said, Kalonzo hawezi kumwachia mtu. Remember that? I was able to demonstrate beyond any doubt that I not only let it out to my brother Raila, but I went out of my way to campaign for him even more than I did for myself. The issues are not about Raila Kalonzo or Wetangula. The issues are about liberating this country out of bad governance.
Some Wiper members of parliament have urged Odinga to back Musyoka for the presidency in 2017 and return the favor for his support in the 2013 exercise. Francis Gashuri, Monday Special.
We continue our discussion now on youth and HIV/AIDS, and here's a couple of text messages. Eliza in Nakuru says, to curb the spread of HIV among teenagers, parents should stop telling their children only sex is bad. Instead, they should tell them sex before marriage is bad, but if you can't avoid it, know your partner, otherwise use protection. And then Josek in Nairobi says, many parents take young ladies for family planning, forgetting that AIDS can't be prevented by family planning. Parents should counsel their young ones accordingly. So a lot of people here, even the tweet I read earlier, were saying parents are not talking to young people. Maybe I can ask the two of you, do you feel like that's something that's not happening? Do you feel like, you mentioned you were just told about getting pregnant. As a 26-year-old and now an advocate, is that still an issue you're seeing with other young people?
Yeah, it's still an issue.
Yeah.
Because most of our parents nowadays, they're so busy, even they don't have time with their kids. Yeah, they're just looking for money. So they don't know even if their daughter or son is sexually active. They don't know anything. All they do is look for school fees and take the child to school.
Yeah.
They don't talk about sexual issues.
Yeah, so it just happens. Rashid, how would you want to see that addressed? What would you want to say to parents in terms of how to approach their children and begin having these kinds of discussions with them?
You know, what parents fail to realize is that it's a different generation, like a totally different generation, where we're exposed to so much, and around teenagers and youth there's just this whole circle of influence. It's usually parents, teachers, you know, and then nowadays it's parents, teachers, friends, social media, mass media, what you see in music and movies. So the generation is different, but then parents tend to sort of just stick to, you know, like culture, and we try to avoid these things. We try to say that, oh no, not my child, but really it's happening. I think for every parent it should be something that they should be able to talk about. I mean, for my dad it's something that he can bring up in a conversation just out of the blues, like whoa, where did that come from? But you're happy it came up because now you get to talk about it, you know. You just, when a child or when a teenie like us, when you get to talk to your dad or mom, it's just something that's very enlightening. So we should look for those moments, icebreakers, you know, be a friend to your child, you know, collaborate these things, and then now just bring it up. Pole pole, don't scare them.
Well said. Be a friend to your child and try and... Dr. Otiso, have you, just based on some of the work that's done at LVCT, what have you seen work in terms of the kind of communication that works for younger people to begin to understand why unprotected sex could in the end lead them to HIV/AIDS? What kind of communication, how do you relate to young people to get that information across to them?
Okay, as a start, we've already said there's now social media, there's television, there's all sorts of things, peer pressures and peer pressure, friends and parents, teachers. All those are sources of information. Social media has worked very well and using telecommunication. So if it's an SMS, it could be a phone. Like we have a one-to-one youth hotline. The number is 1190, and youth are encouraged to call and ask about anything. And they don't have to feel shy or scared that it's a parent or someone. And we have adolescent or adolescent-friendly counselors who will answer the call and answer any of the questions. A lot of them will be about relationships and use of contraceptives, and then we'll direct that conversation towards talking about HIV. What do you need to worry about? What do you think about? How do you protect yourself? Then we've also identified that using peers, so fellow adolescents like Rashid here, who can speak to those messages, have maybe undergone those experiences, are usually a useful resource in reaching out to their own peers and passing on the right message.
You said it's 1190. Is it a 24-hour?
It's 7 to 8 every day.
Okay.
It's toll-free, so it's toll-free. You can call anytime. We'll
try and put that number up a little later on. And for you, Eric, just in terms of, you have a background as well in counseling, how should society begin to approach young people in terms of what do you need to tell them? You've got a young person who's got HIV/AIDS. What should people in society, how should they treat them? How should they begin to embrace them, handle them, just to make them still feel like, you know, they're one of us?
We've come from the very dark age where HIV would be considered a death sentence. So I must commend society largely for that step that we've made. However, that said, there's still a lot of stigma around. She's told her story, and from the family setting, from the health facility setting, from the schools. Elijah was here some time back, and he told the story of how in his school teachers and friends used to really stigmatize him. You know, we are going to play for PE, but you cannot come. You know, such a thing is really, really sad. So when there is a lot more information coming from like such a media outlet and a lot of public visibility, led at times even by prominent people, you know, individuals who choose to say that yes, we believe in a cause like fighting stigma amongst young people who are living with HIV, because at times it's not really the disease that kills, it's the stigma that will bring someone down. So society has a responsibility to understand that living with HIV requires the individual or the patient to feel that they are part of a community and be that community for this individual. That is very, very important.
That's important.
Yeah.
Lilia, let me come back to a question I'd asked, I think, Eric, something similarly before we went on the break. But as a young person, and I'll also ask Rashid, how best can you communicate, or can people nowadays communicate to the younger generation about the dangers of having unprotected sex? Because like I mentioned, there seems to be young people nowadays seem to be very desensitized. They're not really afraid. They're more afraid about falling pregnant than getting HIV/AIDS. As a young person, what do you think needs to be communicated to this younger generation to kind of shake them into realizing how serious it is to have unprotected sex?
Okay, we should talk about HIV.
How though?
We should use the young people who have lived experiences to talk about the other young people, to tell them that this thing is real, and living with HIV is not an easy thing though, as it may look to them. It's not easy, and they should abstain. I usually tell people, abstain, no matter what, because you'll not die if you've not had sex.
Some people cannot. Eric was going to.
Is that the solution?
Is that the solution? Because a lot of young people will be like, no, I'm not going to abstain. I'm 14 years old. I'm sexually active.
It's a good message.
Yes.
It is a religious message.
Yeah.
It is socially empowering message, but is this the reality?
Okay, and I think at some point it was. I think at some point abstinence was a message that was
when the response started.
When when it started, and people kind of responded to it. So what do you, I know I'll ask Rashid just now. I know he wants to comment on that. So that the abstinence, that language isn't really working. So then what else can we do? I like what you're saying, young people talking to other young people, but how else can we get younger people to be more concerned?
We should package their messages, messages that are youth friendly also, and we should I think basically talk about it, because nowadays people don't like talking to the youth about HIV.
Okay.
Yeah, we should just talk about it in general.
All right. What are your comments?
I think I have two. First, I have to reiterate what you said.
Yeah.
Getting young people who are already living with HIV, talking to other young people is one of the best solutions we can have, because teenies need to know that this is not for old people, or this is not for trashy people, or this is, you know, there are those myths. You need to learn that it can affect anyone and everyone. It knows no race, no gender, no tribe, no age. But second, when we're talking about HIV and we're talking about teenagers, I think the main challenge that we have right now is trying to make, one, abstinence be cool again. Yeah. Because it just became a bit boring. Like nowadays you'd watch television, especially after like now 9 p.m. news. What is the best advert you'll see? For Trust condom and for Durex condom. It's good. It's okay. We are telling people to use condoms, which is good. We're making it cool. But also, why have we forgotten the people who are abstaining? You know, adolescents are heterogeneous species. See, it's not everyone who's having sex. Yeah. So we need to also balance it out.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So the messaging shouldn't be so gung-ho and driven about condom use. It should also go back to talking about... Would that work for you? You're 18. Think about your friends, your age group. 17, 18, think about when you were 16. Would the message about abstinence hit home? Or, you know, I'm trying to understand, if I'm trying to get into your mindset to find out what would make Rashid say, I'm not going to have unprotected sex. What? Male. A hot-blooded male.
I don't like it when you
and, you know, there's this beautiful girl, and everyone's doing it, and you're not going to have... What would make you sit up and say, I need to either abstain or use a condom?
And that is what I was saying. Trying to make abstinence cool again.
Can it be made cool again?
It can be made cool again. I mean, there was a time when you would be proud to say Mimi Nimechid, because that was the biggest thing in the country. So we need to sort of try and make abstinence cool again. Or if we don't go that way, we can rebrand. You know, everything is about rebranding. When it gets too old and everybody knows the same thing, it's a sing-song here and there, you just don't want to say it anymore. So the ABCs of being abstinence, be faithful, use a condom, has become boring with people. What if we rebrand it? And I'm just going to steal something from a very adolescent specialist HIV person called Maxi Eric Gitau. He rebrands it like this. A, awareness. Let's talk about it. Let's let the teenagers know what this is. Give them the information, because information is power. Then B will be bring it on. Now that I have the info, bring on everything, you know, just put me in these situations that will need me to just back up this knowledge that I have, and see, conscious choices, because I have the information, I am ready to face it head on, and now I can make a conscious choice. You know, rebranding it makes it cool again for the teenagers.
Can I add something? Yeah. It's also important to also talk about alternatives to sex, because abstinence is sex. I mean, abstinence is not having sex. So, but what are the alternatives you're providing? Don't leave a young person in a vacuum. What are those alternatives? You could hang out, go for picnics. You have a whole list that shows these are the multiple alternatives for sex that are fun, energy, adrenaline filled, really interesting and intriguing, that don't necessarily, you don't have to take your clothes off to have fun. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's well said. Was the ABC that he just mentioned, I think did you just credit him? You did?
I did.
Is that something you coined, or
yes, I coined it earlier this year in a training that he was part of, because I thought really it is a really difficult... ABC is standard abstinence, be faithful and condom use, but is that really the reality? Yeah, so it's not necessary. It's not. It's not what. It's not the truth. But it was a conversation we were having in a training session. Okay. And we figured it's probably important to think about awareness first. Yeah. Bring all the awareness. Let everyone know about all the choices there are, all the options, including for contraceptive, including why condom use is a dual protection, including why being faithful is important, including why abstinence and the alternatives to sex are cool, yeah, and then bring on any challenge.
Okay.
Bring it on, and then of course conscious choices.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're pretty much out of time. I think I want to just give everyone a chance, to say their parting words, and you also an opportunity to talk about what your organization, what you're doing on behalf of your organization. Maybe I'll start with you, Doctor. Just your parting shot, just in terms of youth and HIV/AIDS, and what the country needs to know, what people need to be aware of.
Okay, we have seen that the cases are increasing. Issues are to do with stigma and just protecting themselves. One thing that we haven't discussed is the truth is education is protective, but within the education sector we need to talk to the kids about HIV, about pregnancy and all the related issues, but parents should also talk to their children about sex, and if they have a problem doing it, they need to ask for help on how to talk to their children so that it doesn't become an issue of teachers or the church. But we all need to get together and talk to our adolescents, our youth about sex and abstinence, and it does work. And actually even education does help protect from HIV, from pregnancy, and delay sexual debut.
Yeah,
so we want to
like something that should even be part of the school curriculum.
Yes,
just educating. All right, thank you so much for that, Eric.
I also don't want us to forget about the adolescents and young people who are also living with HIV. Their issues are multiple. It's good to prevent, but then there are those who either are born or acquire HIV at a stage in their life. Provision of treatment is very, very important in this country, and I think there should be accelerated effort to ensure that no single young person who is living with HIV is not receiving proper medication.
Even as you continue that point, how accessible is, or where are we in terms of provision of that kind of medication with young people?
In this country, 145,000 almost young adolescents, young people between 10 and 24 are living with HIV. That's a huge number, 150,000. Not all are able to access medication. There is good effort. There are organizations and health facilities that are government-owned and also private facilities that provide this. But in some cases, there is a charge to it. In some cases, it is not affordable. In some cases, it is not available. So it further deteriorates a situation that's already sour. So there is need to provide this information and to make this medication life-saving medication and make it accessible at every stage. And secondly, not to stigmatize. Stigmatize is the one. Stigma and discrimination actually really kills. So it's important, if you're living with someone who is living with HIV, it is important not to be the one who is stigmatizing them. Accept them, live together, share a meal, live life together. It is, tell them you love them and encourage them to continue with life. Add a smile to them and it will give them a lot more life.
All right, thank you so much, Eric. Lillian, like I say, thank you for coming and sharing your story. Tell us a little bit more about what, about the organization.
Okay, Sauti Sikika is an initiative that advocates for the sexual and reproductive health rights of adolescents and young people who are living with HIV, from the community level to the international level. We are all over Kenya, and we are also on Facebook. You can like our page. On Twitter, we are at Sauti Sikika 1. We embrace all the young people who are living with HIV. We support them. We capacity build them so that they can talk about it and also talk to other people. We create awareness in the community, and that's what we do.
Very quickly, there's a question I didn't ask. I know when you were telling us your story about how you were I think you were 19 at the time you found out, and then there was stigma. What then made you want to become an advocate or speak for people, for young people living with HIV/AIDS? What is it that inspired you to do that?
Okay, I felt so bad what I went through, and I was imagining that somebody somewhere is going through the same thing that I'm going through. So that's when I went to WFAC, Women Fighting AIDS in Kenya, and I found some women there. I talked to them, and they really supported me. And that's when I came out and started talking about myself and encouraging other young people.
All right, and thank you for sharing your story. Thank you so much. Rashid, your final words.
Mixed emotions.
Mixed emotions again. How we started is how we're ending, with mixed emotions.
I think the talk about HIV should start from the grassroots level, from the household or in schools, because you know, people will say, no, what's the government doing? And as a wise man would say, ask not what the government is doing for you, but what you are doing for your government. So I think it should start from the household. I think our parents should just talk about it. I think kids should also just, you know, take some time and ask their parents, you know, get information from them. Or if not, as Dr. Otiso was saying, there's a toll-free number, 1190. Yeah. You call, you have adolescent-friendly counselors ready to help you and give you all the information that you need. Do not go to the internet, because that's not the best place to go.
Yeah, to get information. Okay.
Do not always rely on your friends, but be that person who gives them the comprehensive information. Okay. And also, like one-to-one page on Facebook and Twitter. It's one-to-one KE, and just engage, interact.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for being so open. And Frank, I think you've enlightened a lot of people, just as young people coming and sharing your point of view. I think this is where the conversation should continue to go. And thank you both as well. We're going to take another short break. Then Hussein Muhammad joins us on set to wind up. So stay with Monday Special.